Roundtable. Welcome to the Alliance Roundtable to discuss how CEOs are actually using AI. And for those of you who are new to the Alliance today, we've been bringing leaders together since 1996. And the core of the Alliance are our carefully curated private groups. Our community events like we're having today are designed to basically leverage the collective wisdom because we do learn faster together. And we're at just the beginning of a really transformative time, an inflection point in history. Just like when we founded back in the 90s, when the internet was becoming reality, AI is in the process of just starting to transform the way we live and work. And so, frankly, if we can come together and learn from each other, learn what's working, what's not working, it's like we're all experimenting, and together we can share what we're learning. And that's the whole intent of today. The survey we did, actually, it was interesting. 70% of our CEOs are currently using AI in their businesses beyond just the piloting, and 50% have had positive results. So we want to learn from not only what's working, but what's not working. And so I've asked Matthew Swanson, managing partner of the Silicon Valley Software Group, to moderate, and he's invited our guest today, Mike Adams, who will be sharing how he's been using AI in his businesses, and and then we're going to be going to breakout groups where we can share and learn from each other in our individual groups. So with that, Matthew, take it away.
Thank you, Paul. So yeah, as Paul mentioned, a little background on myself first. I spent the past 15 years working in AI, deploying in commercial settings. And with Silicon Valley Software Group, that's our mission, to guide enterprise leaders on how to turn AI technology into revenue. So today we're going to hear from Mike Adams, who's going to walk through his AI journey. Before we jump in there, we're going to go through a quick set of slides to frame up the discussion. And then Mike and I will walk through his experiences at Pop. So over the years, we've developed a methodology that we found useful when looking at applying technology into an enterprise. There are 5 layers. We're going to quickly walk through each layer and describe AI's role. The first layer are the revenue metrics. And if you joined us last time, we walked through an 8-stage customer lifecycle that we like to use to measure revenue across each revenue decision a customer makes. So we found that any business has one of these 8 stages as part of their business. Whether they measure it is a different story. What we find, though, is that even though all 8 stages exist for each business, each stage will have a different way of measuring depending on the business. So if you're a direct-to-consumer brand, as an example, you might measure at the awareness stage at the top of the funnel things like organic search traffic and ad click-through rate. That's going to have a meaningful impact on your revenue. That's going to be very different than if you're a B2B company, where you might measure webinar attendance or billboard reach. Similarly, at the end of the life cycle at advocacy, if you're a consumer brand, you might measure things like social engagement. Who of your customers are advocating for you on social media? That's going to be a really important metric to move your revenue. Whereas a B2B company might measure things like net promoter score at key touch points. So I've included on this slide a sample of what a life cycle looks like, and the power that it provides in having a holistic view of revenue. We find it to be a helpful way to guide focus on where revenue can move. And so in a bit here, we'll talk about Mike's experience moving marketing qualified leads in order to drive more decision stage revenue. Going one layer down into the customers, we find that any revenue KPI corresponds to a customer event. They're clicking on your ad or submitting a lead form. right? Those would be examples of active things customers might be doing with your brand. They're also passively providing signal. If you have a subscription business and a customer chooses not to opt out in a given month, that's a decision, that's a touch point that can be measured. So the important thing to note at this layer is this is where the most valuable data for AI exists, if you can capture it. Moving one layer down into the employee business process, anytime a customer interacts with your brand, it kicks off an internal process. Sometimes that goes directly to an employee. If someone calls into the contact center, an employee might be answering that. Other times it's an automated system that your workforce has set up. So things like, clicking express shipping option on checkout will kick off a supply chain business process. And so this is another really critical layer that has to be factored in with AI in order to move revenue behaviors with customers. Going further down, we get to the technology layer. And this is where, when we talk about AI and AI tools, is usually where we're talking. This layer is exploding. This is a recent landscape showing over 2,000 AI vendors, up 30% year over year. So there's a lot of change happening, and there's a lot of growth in this layer, making it really important to be selective on the tools that will impact the layers above. And then the final layer that we consider when we look at AI for revenue is the data. And this is what ultimately powers AI. You could use a generic AI tool like ChatGPT for certain things, but the most advanced use cases are going to come when AI is customized to your business's unique environment, and that's going to be determined by the data you feed it. So the way we like to think about this layer is as a jigsaw puzzle. If your data is spread out with your web data in Google Analytics, your CRM data in Salesforce, customer support in Zendesk, your AI is going to have an incomplete view of your customer's intention. And so this is why it's really important to organize data into a central data store. If you've heard conversations around data warehousing, this is one of the main use cases and financial motivations of building a warehouse. If you can do that and connect to the layers above, you really can turn data into revenue. So with that as our backdrop, we're going to introduce here Mike Adams. I've had the pleasure of working with Mike for the past year and a half and seeing firsthand some of the transformations AI can have on a business. So Mike, please introduce yourself, maybe share how you came into Pop, the mission at Pop and some of your revenue goals.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Matthew. It's nice to talk to everybody. Appreciate you being here and listening. I always like to talk about Pop. Pop has been around since 2009. We are a full-service online marketplace that connects sellers with buyers of boats and RVs, and we believe is a great market for other big ticket items. So our primary focus is on middle America and those kinds of products that is owned in that demographic that our customers want to buy and sell, that typically come with higher than the average expense of something that you would buy online, and probably a little more complexity with things like titling and transportation and inspections and things of that nature. And so we combine the power of our marketplace and online marketing, which we've been doing through our proprietary platform for over 20-something years. It's an evolution from a couple of different companies. With the full service of our team that's out in the field, we have about 300 Pop consultants spread out around the country. They go out and work with our sellers firsthand to build ads, to schedule and coordinate showings, to facilitate the negotiation process, work them through to a contract, and turn that over to our full-time closing team. Our closing team walks the buyer and the seller through the full transaction of paying off liens, clearing titles, scheduling inspections, coordinating transportation, and then finally delivering full funds through our secure escrow to the lien holder or the seller, and then the product to our buyer. So it's a pretty complex process from end to end. And it's one that frankly does require a lot of data. One of the benefits I think that we've had over the years is, we realized in the late 90s that having a centralized data store and collecting data on every touch point that we could get our hands on was very important. However, up until the last year or so, it's been very difficult to effectively adapt to the changes that we see in that data. So it took human beings looking at the metrics to adjust algorithms that we have to direct buyers to sellers, to get the right POP consultants involved, to put the listings in the right place. Those are all really involved algorithms that we have in our tool, but it took manual intervention to affect change in those algorithms. With AI, we can tap into the data and start to more dynamically really move our buyers and our sellers through the process more efficiently, creating a better customer experience. So that's a quick intro to POP. The best I can do in a couple minutes.
Yeah, really helpful, Mike. So let's kind of dive in though now on some of those steps that you went through here, connecting that data into ultimately revenue. So you described, there's a lot of moving parts in your business. How do you measure revenue today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, obviously we have two major segments that we deal in. And our primary source of revenue is through commissions from our sellers. POP stands for paid on performance. So our sellers don't pay us unless we bring them the buyer that purchases their boat or RV. And so there's a lot of metrics to look at as it comes to revenue generation. Obviously we don't sell every seller's product. So looking at the conversion rate of the number of listings we have versus the purchase is really important. And we start to measure revenue on that commission that is coming in. We look at it from a lot of different angles. We'll look at it obviously by segment. We'll look at it by, product category, maybe by brand, by region. And then we'll break it all the way down to obviously individual POP consultants and closing advocates to really get a sense of where are we driving revenue, where are we losing revenue, how are we growing revenue. And then we have other sources of revenue. So we'll tack products on top of the main commission like F&I or transportation or tire and wheel, as well as closing services such as the closing fee itself for our buyer, or titling services, U.S. Coast Guard documentation services, things of that nature to drive revenue into the organization.
So again, a lot of moving parts. One of the things we saw kind of jump out was just the amount of leads that you're getting every month. Give us a sense of magnitude of your top of the funnel.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have about 10,700 active listings right now. That generates about 200,000 unique visitors to our website every week. We also distribute those listings out to all the major listing sites in the RV space, like RV Trader or RV Universe, in the boat space, like Boat Trader, Boat Crazy, things like that. And so we're generating leads from people coming to popsales.com, our activities on Google, Facebook, Bing, etc., as well as our third-party listing sites. We generate about 20,000 unique buyer leads each month that we distribute out to our POP consultants on those listings.
And that accumulated over the years, and it got to a point where, that's a large enough number where there's no way you can manually sift through each one of those leads to determine how to assign those in real time. And this is where, one of the signals that we look for to identify an AI opportunity. Using that as a starting point, we looked into building an AI model to score those leads. When you have 20,000 leads on any given time, it's really important to know who's ready to buy and who's still kicking tires. And so, the current state was a lot of leads being assigned to sales reps who weren't ready, scoring the leads and finding the hot prospects was one of the first things we looked into doing with AI. But if we were to connect that into the next layer, so you have customers who are coming to your web properties, they're submitting lead forms. What kind of data are you able to capture at those touch points?
Yeah. So obviously, one of the things that we're capturing is, where are we generating these customers? So we've always done some pretty deep analysis on what is the overall source, in those sources, what are the forms or the touch points that are generating those leads. And we measure every lead source, by multiple layers, multiple dimensions, to understand the ROI that we're generating from every dollar that we spend on generating potential customers. Once we get the customers into the environment, we obviously have the information that they've given us. Many of our customers will come to us and make an offer through our website. And so now they're starting to give us financial information. They may get pre-qualified, so now I have deeper financial demographic information on the customer. And then once they get to the website, we're building a profile on that customer based on every interaction. So our POP consultants on any buyer or seller can see every single unit they've looked at, how many clicks on it, what they looked at on that unit, and we're collecting all those different touch points, along with all the data that the customer's volunteering to us, so that we can start to, at a rudimentary level, start to figure out, okay, this is a hotter customer, this customer is probably higher in the funnel, and then that generates how we nurture those customers, what kind of emails we send to them, what kind of texts we send to them. But again, it was a very manual process to mine that data and figure out, how to nurture these customers and convert them into sales.
Right, and so that was again one of the motivations to say, all right, there's a lot of customer data, hundreds of attributes being collected on the customer. There's way too many permutations to try to set up manual rules. So we ended up creating an AI model using all of those signals that ultimately was able to predict the intention, high likelihood buyers within 90% accuracy, and sort through and make sure those ones get prioritized over others in the lead assignment. So that brings us to the next layer, which is, you found a revenue metric, lead MQLs, marketing qualified leads. You had a bunch of data to train a model to see the likelihood of their purchasing. And the next stage is to improve the internal operations, how leads get assigned to employees. Perhaps you can speak a little bit there to the challenges you had traditionally faced introducing technology into the workforce, and how you overcame them with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, we have 300 POP consultants spread out throughout the country, and they vary in capabilities of success. We try to bring them all along, but we have some salespeople that are better than others. And so we typically have measured our team through our preferred program, which measures a lot of different conversion points. Their conversion percentages on listings that are assigned to them, their buyer conversions, their customer satisfaction scores, finance penetration, number of deal parts they're doing, things of that nature. And so, we were able to, kind of stratify our POP consultants that way. And then we have different ways of assigning leads to our POP consultants. So it could be a customer that's been working with a POP consultant on past purchases or past interest, and they know that POP consultant. And so obviously it makes sense to route them to that POP consultant. It could be that it'd be better off to send the lead to the listing rep because the listing rep knows the product the best. But there's different variances in both their performances that could impact whether or not we want to send that lead to that pop consultant. Our pop consultants are all independent businesses, so they can work whenever they want. So, obviously we have to measure that versus their capability to service a customer at that time. And so there's a pretty developed algorithm that's been built over the last 15 years to make those assignments. The algorithm gets unwieldy. Sometimes it gets difficult to understand why something got assigned to somebody. And so applying the AI model to not only identify high quality leads, but the best pop consultants to convert those leads has made it a lot easier for us, and frankly, an easier conversation with our pop consultants to explain why they did or did not get certain leads in a particular situation. And as a result, we're seeing a much better conversion rate.
So, on that point, AI can have a lot of influence on the workforce. And in this case, you found a way to apply the AI in the background to allow your employees to get the benefits without having to do a whole bunch of training. And I think that's just kind of a general takeaway. Any business will have a lot of AI use cases. One important factor is going to be where can AI have the least friction in introducing to the workforce.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I will stress that we were able to build this, frankly, without our team even being aware that we were building it, and layer it into our technology without an impact on our development team. That's a really critical part for a company our size. Any project we take on with our development team is precious, and so implementing something new can be difficult. And so having the ability for Matthew's team to plug that in without our development team having to do a lot of heavy lifting, as well as without us having to go out and train the pop consultants on what they were seeing, because to them it looked exactly the same. They were just getting a lead. They didn't even know that it was a higher quality lead. They were just getting a lead, and we expect them to perform a certain way. And so it was really transparent and invisible, what was happening in that lead assignment process.
So at this point, you've got an AI model, you have a revenue metric you're optimizing, you've collected a bunch of data on your customer, and you're now influencing your employee behavior. We talked about an AI model that got created to do this. I'd be curious to hear kind of your perspectives a little bit more broadly on just, how you, your journey with AI overall. This was your first AI deployment. How has your view on AI changed through the experience?
Well, it's interesting. We've always kind of prided ourselves on being an organization that was ahead of the curve in how we use data and technology to drive success in our business, especially in our industries. And so we've always had a lot of what we consider predictive intelligence built into our platform. But there was a wall that we hit, and that wall was, really the restriction of human beings' ability to parse data at scale and make decisions on how to alter, algorithms that had major impacts on our business. And our business is one where the behavior of our pop consultants, of our buyers, of our sellers, of our closing advocates really are dictated at scale by the platform. We can make small changes and have big impacts, and I've learned this the hard way, on the conversion rates that we see in our platform. And so implementing something like AI becomes scary, because now I can't look at it and go, oh yeah, that makes sense and that's going to work, because it starts to learn the data in a way that's not necessarily intuitive to the way we typically have done business. And so it was a little bit concerning that we would launch something that would have one of these major negative impacts on our conversion rates. I think the way we've gone about it has been really brilliant. You know, we picked a very good, safe test case. We were able to implement it without a lot of lift, like I mentioned earlier. It was not going to sink our business if it didn't go well. And the results have been really painless for us to generate, and they've been good. And so it's been a really good first foray into using AI in a meaningful way in our business. You know, we've used other tools off the shelf to do communications with customers that, you know, have bots that will communicate with customers coming in to, you know, try to move them down the funnel, things of that nature that have been around for a while, but nothing that was this deep into our platform. So that was really kind of my biggest fear in implementing something like this, and very relieved to see the results that we got.
And new technologies are always risky, and that needs to be a factor as well into someone's AI strategy. But at the end of the day, you take risks and, you know, hopefully get rewards. Can you share, you know, what have you seen? The series all about AI making money.
Yeah.
What kind of revenue are you able to measure?
Yeah. So for us, we sell 4,000 boats and RVs a year. And so, you know, we're not a huge company. That's about $250 million in product sales, about $22 million in commission. And so, you know, if we can see an increase in our conversion rates anywhere along the funnel, we measure it from, you know, lead to the offer being signed to offer posted, offer closed. If we can see a meaningful movement in those conversion rates somewhere along the funnel, it can have an outsized impact on our results. And so what we've seen so far is that there are a couple of points in that funnel where our conversion rates have doubled relative to our other lead sources. And Matthew, much to his chagrin, I was very adamant about our test groups and our control groups and how we were going to measure it, probably almost to too much of an anal level. But what it did give me was real visibility into you know, how much better these leads are converting. And so, you know, out of the gate, a very small implementation, we think we're going to pick up an extra, you know, 50 grand a month in revenue. That's what we're seeing right now, which again, for a company our size is meaningful. And all that really, frankly, falls to the bottom line for us. You know, we have a very, you know, leveraged business as it comes to margin. You know, once we clear, you know, our kind of structured expenses, we can scale very quickly and make a lot of money. And so that 50 grand a month is bottom line money for us. We believe we're fixing to go into the next phase of rolling this out to a much larger scale of our leads. And if those conversion rates hold, I think we'll see probably another 250 to 300 grand a month in revenue being generated. And, you know, I think those are pretty reasonable, safe assumptions, conservative assumptions, because it's just doing math on the conversion rates. And if those conversion rates hold, that's what we'll see.
Which again goes full circle, having those revenue metrics clearly defined across the life cycle allows for this sort of financial projections, and you know, that's ultimately what drives a lot of decision making. So, Mike, thank you for sharing your story here. We went through a full set of layers on connecting revenue to the customer impact, to employee changes and the technology that needed to power that. We're now going to break into sessions. Paul, can you share the format here?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mike, for being our guest and just